that 3-bedroom, like 3-bedroom, 2-bath house is now being used, and each bed is about $2,500 a month. Well, you're not going to rent a house for that. You're not going to pay a mortgage at that high rate in my neighborhood. So it's actually taking up housing. And that's an argument that we're going to try to flesh out and make more. We'll need all of your help. But we have the County Board of Supervisors has approved my request to put forth some legislation and get some legislation sponsored. We're trying to define who it is that's going to carry this for us, but it's going to either be probably a couple of people. We don't know that yet, so I'm not going to share that. But we just want to make sure we don't.
I understand.
You know, we don't want to get ahead of people.
We get it. We get it.
But it'll be people that know the issues. And I've talked to all of our Orange County delegation about this, and everybody's supportive. So basically, it's to change the language of the statute so that the technical guidance that HCD is putting out will not prevent cities from adopting regulations and oversight for sober living homes, especially unlicensed. So I'm going to turn it over to Nicole to kind of drill down on all of the detail of this, but know that our office is one that is trying to get all the cities to adopt a model ordinance. I met with the mayors last year of my old district. Patrick was on the call. We're really encouraging you to adopt the model ordinance. I know I've talked to Newport about this at length. If we all adopt the model ordinance, it's not just a couple of cities. I mean, what are they going to do? They're going to say the whole county of Orange, no city can have their housing element approved. Are they going to say, oh, the county of Orange, we're going to go after you all because you have regulatory? No, we have power in numbers. And if it's what the ordinance that's already been adopted and determined to be lawful, that is the best scenario because we already know it's been tested, it's been litigated at length. So that's kind of my pitch to all of you. And I know, there's a lot of risk averse issues here, but know that you're not going to spend $10 million because that's already been done. We hope that I've spoken, I see Kristen's here, I've spoken with Assembly Member Diane Dixon. She and I worked on this issue when we were both mayors, and we traveled to Sacramento many times, to DC, and we're still working on it. So I think as we see the Mental Health Service Act reforms coming into play, which is basically trying to encourage more sober living homes, which is a concern, then we really need to have regulatory reform. And I'll end it on 2 examples, and I'll turn over to Nicole. So the 2 best examples that I can think of as to why regulatory oversight is critical, and it's not just a NIMBY issue. 1, Newport. We all know about the situation where the individual was at the hospital and he came to the sober living home place. They gave him different drugs at different places. And then he ended up wandering around, kicking the door down of someone's home. That homeowner happened to have a gun and shot him, and he's dead. And he's like a 20-something-year-old young man from another state who had come here to get help. Well, that was a big mistake. So then, if we had had more oversight, if we had more investigators, we'd have more people on the ground overseeing that facility, I think it would not have turned out the same way. Secondly, more recently, the county has, because we have our procedures when we give funding for any kind of a detox center or treatment facility, we recently contracted with the Laguna Beach facility. And as a result of that contract, they had to begin the regulatory process. They had to get live scanned. They had to go through the background clearance. And so our social services staff were trying to get compliance. And the operator was ghosting them. And so because we had this oversight in place, that triggered, okay, why is this guy ghosting us? We better look into this. And then it turns out that he's a convicted felon on the lam from Arkansas on drug offenses, and our sheriffs and others went and extradited the guy back to Arkansas, and we canceled the contract, of course. That's the important part. But if we didn't have systems in place, then, I mean, we would be putting vulnerable people at risk of being supposedly served by people who are not necessarily in the capability and professional ability to do so. So those are my two examples of why, if for no other reason, we really need some reform.
Supervisor Foley, if it's appropriate to ask a question, I think the other council members here share the challenge when you said risk adverse. That's San Juan Capistrano.
Yeah.
We're risk adverse, and it's a challenge for me as a council person to overcome that reality and that common sense perspective our city manager has. So, in what way could you help us or make me understand more about the way to approach a city manager regarding your request?
Well,
For the adopting the ordinance.
That's
yeah,
right.
I think we should all pick 1 month.
Yeah.
And do it at the same time.
Yeah, no, I think that's an excellent idea. And I think actually we should have one of these meetings where all the city managers are here. We have legal counsel, we have the attorneys who actually have been litigating this on behalf of the city. And then we can share like best practices, share pros and cons, address the risk issue. I mean, there's a lot of ways to get it done. And I do think, I love that idea.
Yeah.
Everybody put it on the same agenda on the same night, but we just did it.
Well, we don't all meet on the
We
same
just told it over the public meeting, so now the prize spoiled. Anyway, so I'd be happy to help with that. And then I'll turn it over to Nicole, and she's actually a great resource too. If your city manager wants to call and speak to Nicole, I'm going to volunteer her.
Okay. So I'm Nicole Walsh. I'm a senior assistant county counsel for the County of Orange. I probably started working on this issue when Patricia Bates was in your seat, and then it continued with Supervisor Bartlett, and then Supervisor Wagner actually brought forward and wanted us to create the ordinance, and then I worked with Supervisor Foley, then Mayor, and her attorneys to adopt their ordinance. And I think, to answer your question, Council Member, I also think that hearing from the attorneys, and not just me, but there are who have litigated this repeatedly, has horrific testimony and deposition transcripts that people should hear, that the legislature should hear about who's running these homes and about how dangerous they are for the residents and the people nearby. So I think that would be very effective. Part of, I think, what we could help with as well is proposing the statutory language. I know that there have been a lot of proposals dealing with sober living homes. They have all failed. I'm well aware of that. And what I'm trying to address here, and I also know there's a definition of recovery residence that includes sober living homes. But what I'm trying to do here is allow us to regulate, allow the state of California to recognize that we can have use permits for these types of facilities. So it's a land use regulation. That's essentially what Costa Mesa's ordinance is. That's what our ordinance is in the County of Orange. And that allows us to regulate who's the house manager, how many people live there. Then we know where they are. Part of the problem in the County of Orange and unincorporated areas is nobody calls. Nobody tells us where these places are operating. We hear about it on a mass basis at some town hall, but we don't know where they are because they're not registering, right?
Right.
And so what this would allow us to do is have an enforcement mechanism. But what's more, because we already have our ordinance and we do enforce when there is someone we find in unincorporated areas. What's more is that we have had the issue with HCD. We do not have a certified housing element. We have 3 letters to us, and in each of those letters, it says that we cannot have a use permit for sober living homes. We cannot. They cite what I think is an illegal regulation, which is this totally, I don't know who authorized it, this Attorney General group home sober living home guidelines. I don't think it's legal rulemaking, but it has essentially become a rule. And the rule in that is that you can't have a use permit. You can use regular code enforcement techniques like nuisance abatement and those sorts of things to regulate sober living homes, but you cannot require a permit because it's discriminatory. Well, that's the opposite of what the Court of Appeal has found, and now the federal court. The issue that went to the Supreme Court but got rejected was a narrow issue on how you prove disability. But the ordinance in Costa Mesa has been upheld numerous times in trial courts and courts of appeals and now in the federal court. We haven't had that opportunity to litigate it in the county of Orange. We would if we did have that opportunity. I think everyone, for whatever reason, went to the city of Costa Mesa to start their sober living homes. So what
And
I
I left Newport.
after Pacific Shores.
Yeah.
And
And then they went to Santa
then, so I think what we're trying to do here is allow for the use permit to be recognized as acceptable by state law. And just so we're all clear, licensed facilities are specifically in the health and safety code, alcoholism and treatment facilities, community care facilities, all of these types of facilities that are licensed by the state. We are allowed to require them to have a use permit if they have 6 or more in their home. So all we want is for the recognition that we can regulate with a use permit to extend to sober living homes or these recovery residences. The current proposal includes a definition that we selected because it's in the Costa Mesa and the County of Orange ordinance. And I would like it to be a standard. I recognize there is a recovery residence statutory definition in 118833.05F. That definition is just there. There's no actual regulation that is connected to it. So what we're trying to do is have a definition connected to a regulation that would, just like alcohol and drug treatment centers, allow us to regulate with the use permit. We also, of course, partially want this because we do not feel that HCD should be using these guidelines against us to claim that it is illegal for us to have a use permit. As a they're calling it a barrier to housing. Even though evidence in the Orange County record, and I know I've seen the evidence in the Costa Mesa record that they've submitted to HCD shows that we have not illegally denied anybody a use permit. We have not discriminated on any basis. Apparently, though, this is still an obstruction to housing. I agree with the supervisor, and she and I have had this discussion. When a business comes into a neighborhood and can buy a home for 3 times the price of the rest of us, that leads to an affordability issue, right? So for everybody. And really what the state is trying to address is not just discriminatory housing practices, but affordability, I think, and capacity. And so I think this takes away capacity and affordability and allowing us to have reasonable regulation about overconcentration, so spacing requirements, and just knowing who's doing what in that home, I don't think it's too much to ask for. So that's what we're trying to do.
And not allowing certain kinds of individuals
Right.
to be in the care of people who are vulnerable.
Right.
We actually,
Sorry, I'm sorry. First I missed it.
and then we'll take you right after.
Oh, he's the mayor. Thank you.
Mayor San Clemente. Prop 1, the impact of Prop 1 on this, it really guts everything that you've been doing for the past few years, decades even, and allows anybody to put sober living houses wherever they really want and gives state money. Have we started looking at that, or have you started analyzing that?
Yeah.
We looked at it and the facilities that I believe that addresses are not the same facilities we're addressing here.
Okay.
So I think there's a distinction in that those facilities that are SB1 are receiving state or federal money. I do not believe that sober living homes or recovery residences are receiving state or federal money. And so I think we have a distinction there and a reason to still pursue these ordinances and the statutory change.
So have you prepared a memo on that, or?
I have not.
Okay, all right.
Well, we can prepare. a
But yeah,
memo.
we can.
Yeah, prepare a memo, and especially get it out to this group and then the city managers. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Because
And
we have been researching this issue. This came up as soon as we learned about it. Yeah.
Chris, were you gonna, with
Yeah,
with
If I may,
ACCOC?
real quick, hi, everyone, Chris Murray with ACCOC. We are supporting the task force on behalf of Orange County Cities, working with the effort strategically, but just for the purposes of the city managers, anything we can do to make their job easier to put that staff report together, that kind of data is essential. So we will help in any way we can too, but yeah, if we can put together some materials that make it really easy to agendize, so they're not learning from scratch and they
Right.
have those legal rulings and they have the discussions that have occurred to date.
We have a whole PowerPoint
All of that. would be
already in the can.
Yeah. So helpful to make their lives easier.
It's so nice to hear someone say they want to make city managers' life easier. That would be great. No, but you had mentioned spacing and I wanted to talk about, but just know if you've litigated any of the spacing or saturation issues, because it seems like what we're being faced with is, they can be 3 or 4 homes right next to each other, but they get a different license. So the state doesn't recognize the saturation because they'll say, well, wait a minute, there's only one of this type here, and one of this type, and one of this type, and so you don't ever get to the saturation point. So I don't know if that's been an issue.
I
And
have
it's a
not
real
litigated
problem
it.
there.
I have not litigated it. I know that Costa Mesa has, and that's why Cy would be valuable for this group, because he's litigated that issue, and the ordinance is, at least our ordinance and what I'm proposing for the state statute would require these to be at least 650 feet from the next alcoholism and drug treatment recovery facility. So I don't know if we need to add language that states other types of facilities. I think these are the most alike. And so those are the types that we would want, not the spacing to be different. Community care facilities or facilities for older persons, I don't think we have the same issues. I could be wrong, but I don't think they're exactly the same. And so that's why I'm proposing the different types of facilities would still have to be 650 feet from each other. The County of Orange ordinance was actually updated to be 1,200 feet at Chair Wagner's request. We have not litigated that 1,200 feet, but we think that 1,200 feet is also legitimate. The state statutes currently use 300 feet for certain types, and that's not, I don't know if they, yeah, I think Costa Mesa 750.
I just think the discussion here about uniformity is really important. So whatever we think that number is, if we were uniform, I think there's some
I
strength.
think the 650 has
Agreed.
been upheld.
Yeah.
I think Costa Mesa may have increased theirs since the 650 was upheld. The 300 is in state law. 650 is essentially 2 blocks. So there is some evidence, and I think we had it in our record when we passed our ordinance, and Costa Mesa had it in their studies that say that is a good number in terms of allowing people to reintegrate into a normal community, and anything over that is sort of institutionalization inside of a community, right?
And
So
we had some good examples because there was a cul-de-sac in the city that the homes had all but one been bought up by an operator, and they were running this whole, basically an institution on a cul-de-sac street in the middle of a middle-class neighborhood. And so that was where we came up with the spacing, yeah.
And Costa Mesa and the County of Orange, if you go back to when we adopted our ordinances, there are the resolutions that were used to adopt them, and then the evidence that was submitted in support of that is helpful for all of those. So we put all of that into the record, and Costa Mesa really started doing that because in all honesty, Costa Mesa has the most evidence because they had like 231 homes at one time. That's a lot. Yeah, so they had the
We're gonna be
evidence.
very.
Yes, that's okay. I just want to make one more comment, and that is we could put all of this together in a packet. The one thing I would say about the distancing is the reason why the 1,200 for the county. So there are parts of the community where there's a lot of space between houses, right? Orange
North
Park
Tustin.
Acres, North Tustin, some
Canyons.
places in, yeah, South
Canyons.
County. So, and then you have just the kind of more urban communities, residential neighborhoods where 650 feet does make a big difference, right? Because there's more houses. So that's one thing where a uniform might not be, I mean, that's something to discuss. It might not be the best approach because you might not have very many homes. in 650 feet, right?
We are less dense probably than most cities.
But I think regionally,
The state has 1,000 feet for one particular type of house. So the state has already enshrined 1,000 feet, which makes it legal in the state to have 1,000 feet of separation between some types of group homes.
It's legal to have 650 also because that's been federally. No, it is, because
No, it's less than 1,000, so of course it's legal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
sorry, Lori.
That's okay.
I'm tired. You're working faster than I am today.
Great, Katrina, I only work on one issue.
okay, I want to just have maybe one more question because I know that our supervisor does have to leave. And we can also do questions afterwards as well. So, I've seen lots of hands. I think I saw one down.
Afterwards about the community of care
Okay.
issue. I'm sorry, I don't know your name, but I have a question and we can discuss it offline.
Thank you, appreciate that.
I just want to say Anaheim did adopt an ordinance on 21.
Rob Bonta joined the amicus brief against it, right? In Anaheim.
That's on our transitional housing issue. That's the other issue that we've decided to deal with because we have a CUP for transitional housing, 7 or more, again, following the state lead.
Thank you, thank you. Okay, well, I want to thank you, and I know
Yeah,
that
well, thank you. Thank everybody for working on this issue.
appreciate your participation, invaluable. And we appreciate the invitation to potentially come back here. And as the participation in the task force continues to grow, we are pleased also to have a representative from Los Angeles City Attorney's Office, Deputy City Attorney Adrian Coranzi. Did I say that right?
Corsani, but you were super close.
So
Extra
I'm so
points.
sorry.
No,
Thank you
don't worry.
for your grace. So if you could, I know that you are here to share an update on how the city of Los Angeles is dealing with the topic of sober living and recovery homes. If you could share some information with us.
Sure.
And before you do that, can you give a shout out to Mayor Bass and tell her I would agree with her on SB 43?
I will definitely pass that along. Thank you. Thank you for having me here today. And
Let's go.
I apologize for my voice in advance. I've had a cold. I live with 2 little vectors who are in elementary school. And so, it's going around, but hopefully you can all hear me. So the city of LA has had an interesting history with this issue. And I'm really going to give a quick review of where we've been, because based on the conversation that I was just able to hear in this meeting alone, it sounds like we're all in a very similar place and thinking about where we're going with these regulations. So our city, like many cities, has a permissive zoning code. So, relying on that, anything not defined and explicitly allowed in a given zone is not permitted. So back in 2011, in an attempt to deal with the proliferation of unlicensed facilities in single-family neighborhoods throughout the city, our city council adopted a motion requesting an ordinance that added definitions to our zoning code for licensed community care facilities, licensed residential care facilities for the elderly, licensed alcoholism and drug abuse recovery treatment facilities. And the draft ordinance also amended the definitions of boarding or rooming house, which hadn't been amended since 1956, and the definition of family, and added a definition for single housekeeping unit in order to enhance the city's enforcement capabilities concerning unauthorized boarding houses. By adding these definitions, the idea was that the city could establish by zoning where these uses would be permitted. The city was trying to balance the goal of the California Community Care Facilities Act and other state laws where, they were trying to expand the housing for the disabled by creating residential housing opportunities for the residents in licensed facilities, with preservation of our own low density residential neighborhoods. So the challenge, of course, was in the definitions themselves. And it's sort of the cautionary tale of once you get in the weeds, you can't easily get out. Single housekeeping unit was added to enforce the distinction between commercial uses, which are the boarding houses, and residential uses, which are occupied by families. Single housekeeping unit was defined as a unit of people living together as a traditional family by sharing financial responsibilities, chores, experiences, and where a lease was involved, the rental needed to be under a single lease. A boarding house was defined as any place providing lodging for residents in separate guest rooms or under 2 or more leases. And the draft ordinance prohibited boarding houses in single-family zones, only permitting them in the higher density zones. And then finally, the draft ordinance added a definition of parolee probation or home, and that would only be authorized by a conditional use permit. So the draft ordinance actually allowed licensed facilities serving 7 or more to operate as public benefit projects in any zone. And so those would be approved through a ministerial process and subject to specific parking, density, noise, and other land use-based performance standards. And so by establishing the definitions and attaching these regulations, the idea was that the city would have enhanced enforcement capabilities, but also these responsible operators who had other oversight would be able to develop and begin operations quickly. So when this ordinance was considered by the city council, our housing department submitted a letter expressing concerns about the disparate impact that the ordinance could have on protected classes due to the limitations on accessibility in low density neighborhoods. By enacting the zoning restrictions through the defined terms, the ordinance prohibited any sort of housing with transient characteristics in low density zones. At that time, the housing department estimated that about 39 unlicensed properties housing a total of 238 individuals would be impacted by these limitations. I think as all of us are aware, that number is significantly higher now, but back then that was what the data showed. The housing department's concerns mirrored many of the issues that were raised by opponents during the public hearings surrounding the draft ordinance. So that ordinance was not adopted in 2011. And the city council continued to deliberate. In 2013, they considered a revised draft. This version now defined single housekeeping unit as a non-transient group of people living together, sharing monetary responsibilities, chores, and experiences, where the residents have control over the makeup of their own household. The revised definition then no longer relied on the single lease requirement. And similarly, the boarding house definition changed as well. It eliminated this 2 lease requirement. Now the definition made clear that a use was not a boarding house use unless an owner or operator offers lodging to 4 or more individuals who do not live as a single housekeeping unit in exchange for consideration. And lastly, the revised draft only required a parolee, probation, or home to obtain a conditional use permit where 1 or more units within a multi-unit structure have 3 or more parolee probationers. That ordinance was not adopted either. So the city convened a working group to continue working on the issue. And then ADUs entered the conversation and short-term rentals entered the conversation. And other cities established regulations that were subsequently challenged, as this group knows. In 2019, a new motion was introduced related to this longstanding problem. But this time, there was more of an emphasis on protections for the individuals seeking treatment at unlicensed and unregulated facilities. With the abuse of patients as an equal or perhaps slightly more prominent issue, the city council asked for a report back on the current legal landscape, information on what other cities were doing, and best practices, as well as suggestions for future regulations. The planning department ultimately submitted a report highlighting several state bills under consideration at that time, as well as the regulations that you all just discussed previously, like Costa Mesa's, and the legal challenges being mounted in opposition to those regs. Today, we still don't have a final ordinance. The city actively enforces through the use of our nuisance abatement regulations. We have a team that files those cases, that investigates those cases, but it is all related to the nuisance that can so often occur from these facilities. And that's, again, more looking at the impact on neighborhoods and not as much on what's happening within those unregulated facilities. So this presentation really has no conclusion because we are all sort of going to experience that conclusion together, I suppose, as we wait for next steps and seeing what the courts and the state legislators do.
Okay. Well, Adrian, I want to thank you for that update, and understand the, what you've been trying to do. It does show that this is a long time pervasive situation that's only escalating at this point. And there is a joke in here about, LA taking one of our baseball players, but I won't.
We're paying him so well.
Oh, boy. Anyways, quick questions. 'cause we understand-
I just wanted to ask, since it's very Orange County dominated this group, if any Los Angeles members of the city council or elected officials or anyone could be lumped into us a little more, because that's our problem we face, is a lack of interest in the capital of this issue. They don't understand this issue. Orange County understands this issue, but the rest of the state doesn't. So when you have 120 legislators, most aren't from Orange County when you add those numbers up. So getting some bodies from LA County and beyond would be very helpful to this organization, to us as a group, because we lack a Sacramento interest. They don't understand. And I believe that DHCS and DSS has a lobbying effort with a lot of money from special interest, whereas us, we have residents. Residents don't pony up like special interests do. And so there's a greater front in Sacramento against us as residents. And that's our challenge. So having more bodies, especially from LA County, would be very helpful. So hopefully we can spread the word, and Adrian, if you can help spread that word, that would be helpful for us.
Certainly, yeah. And again, thank you for the opportunity to join today, because even just listening to that earlier conversation was really interesting. And so, yes, glad to know that this is all happening, and we'll certainly pass that along.
Thank you.
Councilmember, we also have another member of the Los Angeles City Attorney's Office, Kevin James, Special Assistant City Attorney. Kevin, are you on?
Yeah, I'm here.
Great. Thank you for joining us today. And Adrian, thank you so much for being here. Kevin, I don't know if you have anything you want to add, but I did want to make sure you were recognized for being a part of
No,
this.
thank you. Not really, other than the fact that I also work on some of the legislative priorities for the city of LA and the city attorney's office. So the discussion is very helpful. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you for that. I think we have had some regional additions via Zoom, and the replays are being monitored. So good point. And I think that is why we had to quickly change our name from South Orange County, first South Orange County, then Orange County, then Southern Cal. We had to change it to Southern California. Now it's California. So we're getting there, and I think it's happening fast. So staying on track with legislative discussion, we have Sean McReynolds from Townsend Public Affairs here today to update us on what is happening in Sacramento. And Sean, if you can just take a few minutes to talk about the process, timing, strategy, to get something substantive passed in the future that the governor would sign.
Yeah, that's a great intro, I think, and thank you, Wendy, for that. Again, Sean McReynolds with Townsend Public Affairs. Just a few items that we wanted to update you on as it relates to this issue and what our work looks like on behalf of several cities that are actually represented here today. One of the just kind of first and foremost, the JLAC audit that is currently underway, although it's been paused temporarily, but we expect that it will be taking place again, and the state auditor's office will be conducting that audit. We expect for that to be completed sometime in what we're hearing is winter of 24. So that's a short turnaround time for, I think, a state audit. So I think we're probably looking more at spring or even early summer. Again, this is the audit that City of Newport Beach, along with Assemblymember Dixon, helped sponsor and got through the Joint Legislative Audit Committee, and is now looking at DHCS specifically and some of the licensing requirements that are in place, the enforcement of those requirements, and a whole host of other issues, which I think we're all familiar with. So that audit and the scope of that audit and what the auditor's office will be looking at is all on the auditor's website. So you can take a look at that. Happy to provide that information as well so folks can access that. Yes.
You said winter of 24.
Yeah. So
do you mean like next?
No, like in a few months.
Okay, thank you.
Is again, the official response that we've received, but my expectation is that it will probably be of spring or early summer of 24.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Just want to clarify.
So I did want to just provide an update. We did have a call with the governor's office staff earlier this week, actually, to talk through a number of different issues related to sober living homes. But primarily with the purpose of essentially taking their temperature on not only what sober living homes and the future of them look like with respect to Prop 1 and the mental health bond, which we've received confirmation from the governor's office staff that sober living homes would be considered an eligible project that could be funded using state funds under this bond measure. Sounds like there may be some potentially legal discussions around that down the road, but I was interested to hear the response from county council on that. But
So county council is different than what you're interpreting?
that's the response
Governor's office.
that we've heard from the governor's office staff.
Is conferring with what she said or opposite?
No, she's opposite.
Because that,
Right.
You need
to buy
the house next door to him.
As the governor's office has a broader interpretation of how that money can be used.
That's our understanding.
On many issues.
Yes, right. But really the purpose, I think, of this meeting was to help bring a little bit more clarity on that issue, but also to understand what the governor's priorities are when it comes to a couple of different things, including the overconcentration issue that is taking place in many communities throughout Southern California, but also on the enforcement side as well. It's our understanding that various state agencies don't necessarily communicate very well when it comes to licensing or unlicensing. So our discussion with them was essentially what would be the governor's take on proposed legislation, hypothetically speaking, that would look at enforcement or the overconcentration issues. And really, I think the thing that we heard back from the governor's office, and again, there was no hard and fast, I would say, responses that were solidified, but I would say that our what we could infer was that the overconcentration issue presents potentially an issue if you're talking about adding new regulations to state agencies. What I think there would be an appetite for would be at potentially looking at enforcing existing state law. Hopefully that's helpful to the county council's office as you're looking at legislation as we're waiting the results of the audit as well. I think all of these things will hopefully coincide. And we can start to look at addressing this from a legislative perspective and hopefully have the governor's support on this. So we do see a potential path forward on that. Again, no commitments made, but I think that was some positive news. And I did just want to point out also, I mentioned this on the legislative subcommittee when we met, I believe that was last week, Wendy, was the governor's office, in addition to others who are supporting Prop 1, have started a website and their advocacy work around this bond measure, which will be in front of the voters in March. The website is treatmentnottense.com or .org. And you can see there the list of folks that are supporting that. And so obviously, again, this is the advocacy work around getting that proposal through has already begun. And so just wanted to point that out to folks so that you're aware and you can take a look at that. I would also note that we're hearing that Cal Cities will also be potentially looking at supporting legislation as well come 2024, 2025, and that there's been some resources dedicated to looking at this issue a little bit more seriously. So I don't want to take up any more time, but I'm available for questions either now or afterwards. Yes, Eric?
Sean and Townsend, you were able to help us craft in Newport Beach and a resolution that we unanimously passed that opposes the language that's said by right in Prop 1. I would suggest city council members consider doing that. If you need it from me, I guess I could provide what our ordinance was. You don't have to do the work twice, but maybe you want some contracts out of this group. But, I don't know when this committee meets again, but I do think we should, as a group, take a stance in opposing Prop 1. This group wrote a letter opposing the language in Prop 1, which was the legislative bills that got passed, but at the last minute added the by right component to the bond or what the legislative proposal was. We need to do so again. I believe it's important. We're not going to meet again until the new year. The election is in March. So if we sit idle and our hands down, we're not taking a stance what this group's purpose should
The
be.
voting begins
A
before
lot
March.
earlier.
That's right.
Yeah,
I think it's
so-
important. I agree with you. I
Okay, well,
think
that's-
So while I appreciate county council, looking at it slightly, I will have to disagree. And I think if we don't take a stand on something that Townsend's already looked into for us as a city and said there's issues with the by right component of it, we need to take a greater stance and put our name to something of substance. And we should encourage our local cities to do so and our residents to do so as well, because if it gets passed, the only way we fight it from that point is through litigation. I'd rather just see it defeated and then they can come back to the table and say, we're gonna put a new proposal and it doesn't include the last minute changes, which this did. And, I'm okay with helping in mental health, but not when you add upserve our local control, as most of us here are local elected officials. And we don't get to say where these homes get to go. That's problematic to me.
So with that being said, and you provided some sample of letter language. Would it be appropriate for this group, I'm looking around the table and any comments, to maybe distribute, if you'd be willing, to distribute that language through this group? I know probably ACCOC can distribute that, but through this group, which is, it has a bigger net, a little bigger net, would that be an appropriate thing that would help all of the folks around the table?
But, obviously the
Yeah.
ultimate decision is every city council, but I think it's something that
But we can distribute it. And as far as taking a position, I'm gonna look to my staff members. What do you think is the appropriate action as far as taking a position on this from this committee? Jeff?
Sorry about that, Councilmember.
No, it's okay.
Yes.
Do you think we can take a position on this and send a letter in our current format and scope?
I think that's really up to the discussion amongst the elected officials in this room that are participating in the meeting. I think it's, as you have directed us to set up ad hoc
Right.
committee structures to vet various components of the task force's work. I would suggest that maybe you convene a legislative ad hoc committee meeting that's dealing with legislation and those types of issues. Other members that have been,
And then make a recommendation to this body.
that would be our recommended.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and utilize the committee structure we have in place and go ahead and bring something forward, and we can probably do that in January.
the only problem with that is that, voting starts in February and the campaign for all this stuff is throughout January and it's a very quick turn.
Right, but we can take a position as a body in January. We can distribute the information to the cities immediately,
Okay.
so we don't have to wait on that. Because that's part of what we're doing here, is making sure we're distributing
Absolutely.
consistent information.
You could convene an ad hoc committee at any time that you desire and you feel is appropriate.
Okay, so we'll fast track that.
And I think I saw Connor on the Zoom, and Chris, maybe, you could help us get the language out that Newport used, that Sean's team helped put together for us, and then say, this is what we're concerned about. Here's what your council could consider.
Connor and I have already met with leadership for the task force to talk about how we can team up between our organizations to
Yeah,
assist.
that's great. And if anything, this group could at least mobilize that concept. And then, I get it's a new group. How much do our cities have a stake, or say, I'm just one of 7?
Yeah.
We want to be successful as a group. I think this is a good opportunity for us to come out and say, hey, we have purpose. We have a role here that's.
And that's
for the
exactly
greater-
why we set up the committee structure. So we can be swift and nimble in that regard by having the committee do this in early January and then convene a meeting to ratify any recommendations from that committee.
The ballot arguments already said.
Yeah, I brought them actually for you.
Yeah.
I'll pass them on.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Hi, this is Connor Medina with Cal Cities. Sean, and I believe, was it Eric over there? I can't see. Gave me a shout out, so I just wanted to jump in really quick. I wish I could be there in person, but I caught a bug. Just wanted to chime in and share that, we had our strategic planning with our board and plenty of people from Orange County were there. In addition to that, from our division leadership and other avenues. So we had our big strategic planning meeting a couple weeks ago, and the board gave us clear direction as staff for 2024. We want to see action on sober living homes. We want to sponsor legislation. We're still crafting what exactly that looks like, but very eager to work with all those folks in the room, our members, eager to work with the task force and to see what we can do. But just want you guys to know that in addition to the efforts that this group has already made, the efforts that Cal Cities has done in past years, we're mobilized on this. Our board of cities from all over the state, not just in Orange County, made it very clear to us that that's the direction that we are to pursue. And I just want to make it known to all the folks in the room that we're in lockstep with you on taking action. So thank you.
Thank you. That's good. And thanks for Chris for clarifying that is in the works. Yes, Eric, fine.
Sorry, I just wanted to say one other thing, and that was that as we have looked at the bond measure that's going to be before the voters in March, if it passes, my understanding, my reading of the legislation is that there is broad discretion given to 3 agencies, I believe it's CalVet, DHCS, and HCD, to come up with guidelines that will authorize a program by which people can apply to for state funding for things like sober living homes. So I don't read in the legislation right now that has been so well defined that it's not out of the realm of possibility to advocate, even though the bond measure is passed. You can still approach those agencies and try to advocate for some restrictions around some of those parameters. So I just want to mention that and think that it's important to know that even if the bond measure passes, that the work doesn't necessarily stop there. I think there could be more work to be done on that.
But knowing what we know about the state legislature, knowing that they know about the issue, it's probably better not let that happen. Let's just kill it. And
the agencies nonetheless could be an avenue for a discussion on this issue. And I think that
right. Let me just ask Connor, just a real quick, if you don't mind. I just want to know, is the league taking a stance on Prop 1?
Yeah, so in concert with that direction to take action on sober living homes for the issues that this committee has discussed, they also took a support position on Prop 1, but that is with the knowledge that, if we're going to be, at the table with the governor on his proposal, then on his proposal, then he needs to listen to us and understand, the issues that we need to get clarified, because there is a world where we can have Prop 1 passed and have obvious behavioral health housing, and also a world simultaneously where our cities have more ability to ensure that their community has input from local leaders when it comes to where this housing is and the concentration of this housing.
Hey, Connor, this is Andy. Can you put this on the city manager's agenda for our next monthly meeting, or at least attempt to?
I can get in contact with Pete Grant, who will be the chair of that committee of the association, and let him know that that's of interest.
Thank you.
Connor, I just
Okay.
want to ask Connor.
Really quick, because we have multiple. Okay.
He said that the organization support Prop 1.
They came out and support Prop 1 and ACA 13, the league.
Okay.
Okay, so there's a clear answer.
There's a question.
Okay, and there is a question from one of our virtual participants. I'll go ahead and I've got one arm in the back of the room, and then we need to move on because I've got a hard stop at 3:15.
Jennifer Queen.
Okay.
Is on right now.
Jennifer?
Hi, thank you, Wendy. Sorry I couldn't be there in person. I just wanted to support what Eric Wagon brought forward. I agree 100%. And I also want to commit the Assemblywoman's office to gather any legislative signatures we might need if we do take a stance against Prop 1. And I appreciate your conversation today. So thank you.
And Jennifer, please, for the folks in the room, please explain who the your Assemblywoman is.
I'm so sorry. I just made an assumption there, Wendy. I'm Jennifer Beal, Chief of Staff for Assemblywoman Kate Sanchez.
I mean, I know that, but
I apologize. Your name says Queen Jennifer, which
well, that's what my husband labeled me on my phone, so I can't argue with that, can I?
That's a whole separate thing. Okay.
That's a whole separate thing. So I just wanted to come on board. The Assemblywoman strongly supports the position that Councilmember Wagon brought forward, and anything we could do legislatively to collect signatures at other legislative offices, we're here to help facilitate that.
Okay, terrific. Okay, and then there was one question in the back of the room.
Hi, my name's Steve McNally. I'm on an Orange County Behavioral Health Advisory Board. Welfare and Institution Codes 5604.2. Every county in the state has one. We get to do what the electeds let us do. I was just so glad the gentleman from Newport brought that up. The people across state are looking for something to bring this topic to the table because most of the associations can't take anything but a support position because they're afraid of the governor. And I sat with Assembly Member Irwin last Saturday at an event, and I just asked her to tell me the implementation of the bond. Couldn't do it. So that's my concern is I don't think they'll be able to implement it even if it passes.
Thank you for your input. Appreciate it. Okay, we're going to move on. I want to thank you, Sean, for the good information that you bring back to us. We're appreciating everything that you're doing for this task force.
Pass around those ballot arguments since I know you're moving on. So I'm Kristen Vellante with Assembly Member Dixon. She is a signature in opposition to Proposition 1. The concerns are exactly what was stated here. And this is also, I brought you the argument opposed to the support, so you can see those signatories as well. But certainly it's sort of the devil's in the details, and that very, those 4 words that are in there, and a concern is in her conversations with Supervisor Foley, so thank you to her for it, that this is taking money away from mental health operators and dollars that are in place now, and potentially incentivizing some of those bad operators that we're working so hard to remove. So she certainly will be joining with Assemblymember Sanchez and others to educate on this and raise awareness. So thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, we have a litigation update next from City Attorney, Mission Viejo City Attorney Bill Curley, who's going to provide an update on the current litigation, which we did get a hint of what happened just a little bit earlier, and including the status of the application to have the case heard by the Supreme Court. So Bill, the floor is yours, and you are online, I believe.
Yeah, I'm up here. I'm going to be very quick on the litigation because there really isn't a lot to report. You've heard it. But in listening to everything, all I can come up with is the movie tagline, Avengers Assemble. It turns out we're all saying the same thing from different spokes of the wheel, and it's good we finally formed a hub. When this body first started, it was Councilmember Bucknam and Pat Bates at the time. One of our first goals was to develop a uniform ordinance. The idea of mass, as discussed, are they going to sue us all? Are they going to take on everybody in Orange County? We did look at both Costa Mesa and the variant of Orange County as to the ordinance. We've had a lot of citizen input, which has been valuable. And what we came to figure out is that each of the cities sort of have a little different nuance, a little different concern. There's high-level uniformity, but as was noted, some are big lot cities, some are denser, some have perhaps a more liberal view. So one of the things that we've been slowly working on as to coming up with the uniform ordinance for everybody is to check with the city attorneys, the city council members, city managers, and the residents to make sure we capture all the problems and all the issues we want to try to remedy to the extent we can. And so our efforts have moved a little more tactically. It was excellent to hear Supervisor Foley looking at the same concept of uniform ordinance. So we're all on the same wavelength as to how to get there. We're seeing here we've got different resources that are coming together. Legislative, we've got the league, we've got ACCOC, we've got the various city councils. Now the county is involved. So these subcommittees that have been formed are going to be critical to help meld together all these parallel courses that it sounds like are being taken. I've got a lot of time invested. I know Nicole is, if she's still there, and
She left
Supervisor
just a while
Foley.
ago.
Well, so we've got a lot of uniform approach and just need to meld it together so we're not either wasting time or stepping on each other's toes. As to the litigation, yeah, the Supreme Court declined to take up the action we brought forward, hoping to have the definition of what is handicapped kind of refined. That takes that litigation back to step one. They'll be back in court now knowing what the proper interpretation of that ordinance is. Now it'll be argued over, is the ordinance in fact, knowing that those definitions, is it constitutional, is it viable, is it discriminatory, is it not? And again, running parallel is the Attorney General and HCD's threats. I don't know what else to call them, threats and intrusion. So again, Avengers assemble. The lawyers need to be guided by our policy directors here, our council members, supervisors et al. We can give you strong advice on how to frame an ordinance and what the issues and pitfalls are, but we're going to need your political horsepower at city, county, and state level to both support it, and to the extent we can tame state agencies as enemies, that would be helpful. So again, I'll leave it with, we're all on the same wavelength. We've got to coordinate now, pull all these multiple separate spokes of the wheel into the hub and have a uniform approach. And with that, I will shut up.
Thank you, Bill. Appreciate that. And it is disappointing that the Supreme Court won't be hearing the case. But please continue to update us at future meetings on the other litigation on relevant to sober living, because I think you said that there's a court date to go back and.
Right, we're watching several cases. There's the Ohio case, there's this SoCal Sober Living, which is the appeal. There's a lot of money, as we well know, on the operator side. They are not shy about litigating. You heard Costa Mesa's in now over 10 million into the fight. So we're watching all of them trying to cherry pick the good and identify the pitfalls so we can structure the best path to advise you all on. But it's very dynamic and very slippery at the moment. So we will keep you updated, whether it's good news, bad news, or no news.
All right, thank you, Bill. Appreciate it. So next up, we have our law enforcement agencies, of course, that play a critical role, and we've been discussing, they address the complaints, they maintain public order, they oversee, certain enforcement tasks that are relative to sober living homes that currently exist, and then they have limitations. So they're the people on the street that when the rubber meets the road, that's you show up for whatever reason. Yes, you do have the easiest phone number, and that you do have limitations and restrictions. So we're working with the Orange County Sheriff's Department, which we've mentioned at previous meetings, to gather data to better understand what resources are actually being used in responding to calls at sober living and recovery homes. So today we once again have our Captain Chris McDonald, and we also have Sheriff Don Barnes, Chief of Staff Ray. There you are, Ray. Who will share an update on where we are in terms of reviewing service call data, because you may remember we asked for that information previously, so we have at least a sampling, and then you could give us an update on that. Absolutely. And then Ray, if you want to come up here, if it's helpful to just sit up here and tag team. Come on, Ray. Oh. You can't get out of it. Thank you.
So again, I'm Captain Chris McDonald, the Chief of Police Services for the City of Mission Viejo. So what you have in front of you, unfortunately, we didn't have time to put it on the online crowd, but in front of you, 2 pages with data that's representative of, one is from Mission Viejo and the other from the City of Dana Point. The one from Dana Point has a pretty little graph on it. So a couple of things with this. I kind of want to walk through this so you have an understanding of how we keep our data and then how to interpret it a little bit. And I'll try to keep it brief because I have a background in crime analysis and people really tend to glaze over when I talk about stuff. So just a couple of points to look at. So as we go through our call for service data, it's all coming out of what our dispatch logs say. And everything that's on here is our primary complaint at the end of the call, right? So if it's a disturbance at the end, that's what it is. If it says it's an assault or a battery, that's what it is, but it may also include a vandalism or a burglary or something else within that same call for service, right? So this is the primary complaint on a lot of them. For the city of Mission Viejo, the top are the 10 licensed facilities that we know about. And then at the bottom is calls for service related to the 9 unlicensed facilities that we know about. It's very difficult to get information about the unlicensed facilities because they don't advertise it. So what we look at is call for service data. We do a lot of queries in our dispatch logs to figure out, is it possibly an unlicensed facility? And if there's information within that call for service or history of that, we can then identify it and then go work backwards and try to pull on those strings. So the Mission Viejo data is representative of the years 2021, 22, and year to date of 23. So it's 3 years of call data. We stopped going back earlier than the beginning of 2021. Some of these facilities may have come into existence in the middle of that. So keep that in mind as we're looking at that data. The city of Dana Point has 18 licensed facilities, and they currently don't have any unlicensed facilities that they are aware of that they're actively tracking. So, and then this data is the last 360 last 12 months from December 2022 through November. So that's their information cutoff. So a little bit different. If you're going to be comparing the two, the date ranges are different. A couple other things on here. I would caution comparing the licensed facility calls for service data to the unlicensed. Although I'm fairly confident in that we got a large representation of what it is, I think the data set's a little too small to look at. In 3 years of calls, we're looking at 200 or so calls just in Mission Viejo. I think that's a little small to make correlations of saying, oh, well, we get more calls at licensed facilities than unlicensed. I'm not comfortable saying that. So just some of the disclaimers in that. So across the licensed in Mission Viejo, the unlicensed in Mission Viejo, and then also the city of Dana Point, the top 2 complaints are disturbances. That could be disturbances where somebody in the house calls or neighbors. The second one is assisting county fire, and those are all medical aids. A very large portion of those medical aids are overdoses. Now, that's not indicative of all of the county fire's responses to those residences because we don't go to all of them as being the sheriff's department, right? Only those where it's an immediate life-saving issue where somebody's not breathing or CPR is in progress or something like that. We will go to those. If it's I stubbed my toe, we're not going to go to that, right? So it depends on that call, and there's a varying degree in there. So we would have to reach out to the Orange County Fire Authority to see if they have additional calls that would supplement that. So also of note, down at the bottom of the Mission Viejo, there is one deceased person. It was likely an overdose, but toxicology is still pending on that. So I can't say definitively that's what it was. And then on the right-hand side, what you'll see, we did a workload study across the department in Orange County for the Sheriff's Department and figured out that our average length of consume time on a call for service is 1.57 hours. So about an hour and a half per call for service. And that could be 45 minutes if 2 deputies are there. That's what our consume time is. So on the right half, you'll see for the 3 years for the licensed facilities, we spent about 130 hours or so consume time, and then about 105 in the unlicensed facilities. So not completely overwhelming for law enforcement services by any stretch of the means, but we could definitely be doing other things with our time, pulling over DUIs or proactive community outreach type things. So that's kind of the quick overview. Like I said, I want to keep it brief and
okay, appreciate that.
Yep.
Appreciate that. Do you have anything you'd like to add as far as other cities and data?
No, just so people understand the way our sheriff operations are divided, we have 13 cities that we patrol. We have our north operations, which is the 3 cities, Villa Park, Yorba Linda, and Stanton, and then south east, which includes Mission Viejo, where Captain McDonald's works, and southwest, which includes Dana Point, which you have data here. So we had really just a sampling of 2 of our operational areas. It may be helpful for this group to reach out to a city not patrolled by the sheriff's department, maybe one that has higher concentration of sober living homes to get a better idea.
Yeah, and Katrina actually talked about that in the early part of prior to the meeting started. She's gonna help us get access to some of that information, so.
Yeah, we'll work with Chief Lawrence in this.
Oh, perfect.
Perfect. So that will be super helpful.
Can I confirm one thing? Does this include disturbances in the neighborhood, or does it include disturbances only associated with the property?
It's reasonably associated with the property. If somebody called and said, hey, there's a loud disturbance at this street and this street, and we determined that it was at that house, it would be included.
But if it was somebody down the street, running down the street, it wouldn't necessarily be associated with property.
I'm fairly confident we got most, if not all, of the calls for service that were generated. If it's somebody running down the street, and we figured out,
Hiding in a neighbor's backyard.
would likely be.
Okay, thank you.
Just how would the numbers look like for a random neighbor? Would it be like 1 or 0.01 or?
Yeah, so I mean, there's almost 100,000 people in the city of Mission Viejo. We don't go to everybody's house.
Yeah,
It's not a multiple thing, right? So I would say, 84 calls for service for 10 facilities in 3 years. That's probably a little higher than most.
As far as law enforcement is concerned, what is your coordination with local code compliance or code enforcement staff? I know in San Clemente, code enforcement had a much bigger impact on tamping down the sober living home issue than the sheriffs did. They're just based on the tools that were available. Sheriffs can go and address actual issues, but investigating, surveilling properties to find out how many people they have, how often they're turning around. Those were really the meat of the work that was required to deal with this issue. So what is your?
We work every day together with code enforcement in Mission Viejo. This is not indicative of what their work is, of what they've done related to sober living homes. And most of the complaints that we get are the disturbances in the middle of the night, parking issues, things like that. And it's more of that quality of life issue that tends to overwhelm the neighborhood rather than, a rampant crime issue. So it's something that we definitely have conversations with code enforcement right
All right. Well, thank you. Appreciate that. Okay. Anything else, Ray? No, I know you didn't want to talk.
Happy to be here.
Okay,
For all
thank
you guys
you.
are doing on this.
Thanks. We're glad you're here. Okay. And you're welcome to come anytime, especially if we're keep meeting here. Okay, next up, I want to have Jeff, because Tim isn't here. It seems like a lot of people are getting the cold.
Yes, I think so.
Okay, be careful, everybody. And so Jeff from Venture Strategic, who is our consultant for this task force, is here to give us an update on our strategic plan and our budget. And Jeff, if you can tell us about the plan for the task force and what we need to do to be successful going forward as we head into 2024.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Bucknam. Jeff Corliss, consultant to the City of Mission Viejo and the California Sober Living and Recovery Task Force. We have put together a brief presentation for you on the 2024-2025 strategic plan for the task force. Just a quick highlight for you of the things that the task force has worked on and accomplished over the course of the last year. It's held 6 regional meetings, which many of you have continued to participate in, so thank you very much for that. We have, over the course of the year, had 6 major stories in the Orange County Register that our team has worked with the task force on making sure that the press that is following the work of the task force is
well-informed, has access to the information that's provided at this task force, and understands the issues that the task force is working on. Those have been very important vehicles for the task force to communicate the work that it's doing, and that the folks in this room, including elected officials, members of the public, community members, state representatives, county representatives, and all those who are participating are doing to work together to be responsive to the community on the issues and the concerns that it's faced over the last many number of years. We have over 37 jurisdictions that are currently participating as this task force has grown over the course of the year, which is very exciting. That includes all of the cities that have had one or more representatives attending, participating, providing input and feedback. That includes community members, many of those who are here today, as well as the County of Orange, and also jurisdictions outside of the county, including cities in Northern California. And now, of course, we're pleased to have participation and engagement from the city of Los Angeles, and you've heard from them today. Given all of the participation that has occurred since the inception of this task force, which was driven by the public engagement that started in Mission Viejo, that is no different than what many cities and all of you have experienced. There's been over 200 participants actively remaining engaged. So that's very, very exciting. And it shows that this is a unifying issue and that the task force is seeking to bring people together, as Bill Curley stated, to aim for a long-term strategy of getting actual meaningful bipartisan reforms that make sense and are achievable in Sacramento passed, so that cities have a little bit more balance in terms of control. And that's been the objective and the initiative set forth by the council member and others who are participating in this. Over the course of the last year, the task force and all of you coming together have supported the public communications campaign that supported Assemblymember Dixon's request for the DHCS audit that's currently underway. Certainly, we know that the JLAC, the Joint Legislative Audit Committee, keeps track of those jurisdictions who supported that request. We gathered support letters for the amicus brief to support the Costa Mesa litigation application to be heard. Although unsuccessful, it's important to continue to push that, make that pressure known to those making decisions. Law enforcement data collection, something that we're working on with the Sheriff's Department, and now we'll be working with Supervisor Foley to get the cities that are not serviced by the sheriff to bring forward their data. And one thing that's important about that is the sheriff gave us some really good insights on how to look at that data and the variables that are relevant to considering what the impacts are. So our goal is to make sure that those variables are uniform across not just the sheriff looking at that data, but also the cities, so that they're looking at the same data points the sheriff is, so we have uniform data to inform future policy reforms. Resident testimony and feedback. If you're here to provide testimony on camera, I know we're running a few minutes behind, but as soon as we wrap up, we will be here to mic you up and capture your stories so that we can continue to collect those and find ways to put that out there to the public and to support future reforms that the task force pursues. And then, of course, we saw AB 1696. Although the governor vetoed that, it was unanimously supported by every member of the state assembly and the state senate. So it tells you where the logjam is. It's in the governor's office, and we heard a great update from Sean today on ways in which the governor is willing to work with the community to solve this issue. And so focusing on those will probably be very productive, and we know that the ad hoc committees will be discussing that. The task force strategic plan, our goals for 2024 are to increase membership and participation, further expand and combine resources with participating cities and counties, working with ACCOC here in Orange County, the League of California Cities and its members across the state on issues of common interest, as well as the California State Association of Counties to bring more counties online to support this effort. Advocate for regulatory reform. There are opportunities and certainly common areas of interest that all of you are bringing to the table, so that the group can evaluate thoughtful ways to ask for updates to regulatory issues that the state is involved in, and in often cases, things that we don't have at the city level. And of course, developing a state legislative reform package and model ordinance, which a lot of discussion occurred today about that and the strategy to move that forward. We formed ad hoc committees at the direction of Councilmember Bucknam, the Budget Committee, Public Relations Committee, Membership Growth Committee, and Legislative Committee. These are the 4 prongs of the task force. And the council member has asked many of you to serve in those different ad hoc committees to provide broad stakeholder input into that process. And that includes a mix of elected officials, organization leaders, as well as members of the public. And that's what is very unique about this task force. We have put together and proposed a budget to the council member and to the task force, which includes task force management, which includes meeting and logistics, as well as media relations, stakeholder engagement, and digital engagement as the task force seeks to push messages out there to support the task force's work. We have included in that proposed budget dollars for statewide research. We had a statewide question that was asked, that was presented by Probolsky Research at our last meeting that gave us some initial insights into what people think about sober living homes across the state. If the task force decides it's appropriate to dig deeper into those issues as it's preparing legislative reform, which we are recommending to the task force, research will help support what resonates with the public and deals with the issues the public is facing, that we have budget to do that. And then, of course, budget for the work that will start mid-year in crafting a legislative reform package once the DHCS audit has been presented by the state auditor. And of course, when it pertains to membership growth, we have discussed hosting meetings outside of Orange County and some of the other counties and regions around the state to draw more interest into this, which if we go outside of the county of Orange, which we plan to, those who are here today can participate virtually and will be in a room with new people who will join the effort. So we're very excited about this, and that gives us a total budget to carry this work forward throughout the course of 2024, and then we'll come back at the end of the year as the task force and all of you are seeking to support a potential legislative reform package. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions, council member, that your task force has.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions about any of this?
Who's paying for that?
Well, we're gonna try to,
right?
we have been,
Yeah,
we have been.
so how come?
I'm going to address that. I'm gonna address that. That's part of the reason we established task force. That's so that we could come up with a budget so that we have something to present.
And Councilmember, I could just say that all of the work that the task force is doing and everything that defines this task force is responsive to the grand jury report that was released that many of you have all read. And it addresses each of the recommendations in there that it advised all cities in Orange County to be a part of. So it's 100% responsive to that, which was helpful to all of the cities in the county and responding to that grand jury report to show that the cities are taking action.
Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate you taking the time to share that. And this is kind of where we've come to this point where we're getting into the meat of it and share what this task force is going to do. We're getting focused, we're getting laser focused. We're bringing so many different people and ideas and regions to the table that and great resources from this Orange County team that we have, that especially Katrina and pardon me, but Supervisor Foley, I shouldn't be so casual, and her team here today. So we, as we continue this effort, including task force, the task force operations, city and county outreach across the state, earned media communications. I believe Terry Sforza was going to be online. She wasn't feeling well, another one. And so she is not able to be here, but she did communicate with us earlier this week and is very on top of what we are doing and continues to report information and bring it to the top of the news cycle. So we're building our coalition of support. We're crafting thoughtful legislative reform packages that will be informed by state audit, as was mentioned, and the pending court cases as we've shared, as Bill has been sharing with us. We want to maintain all of our digital assets, including our website and the hub of sharing the info. And I would like to ask our participants, including city and counties, to consider a nominal contribution toward the budget that's been presented. We have discussed with our city associations facilitating overseeing the budget. going forward for its city and county members. And if each jurisdiction contributes somewhere between 5 and 10,000 a year, we will more than cover our modest expenses. Every city's a little different. That's why it's the range. Every city can do something different. Mission Viejo has contributed funding, as I mentioned just a moment ago, for getting the task force off the ground for the last year, and gladly so. Because Costa Mesa and Newport Beach have put forth significant amounts of money and have led the way to this point where I think we all need to join in and join together. So I would ask you to bring this back to your councils for consideration. I know that we will likely the city manager group will likely be talking about it, ACCOC as well. And we're willing, and anything that they'd be willing to contribute and starting out this way would be appreciated. So we put that out there. So I know that we have several people joining us today that want to share their stories. So just to follow up on what Jeff said about how sober living homes and recovery homes have impacted your neighborhoods. And if you haven't already and you'd like to tell your story, find Sam and Ashley in the back. Raise your hands. There you go, to tell that story. And I want to thank the members of our ad hoc committees. Thank you, thank you, thank you for stepping up. You've met. I will likely not be at every single one of the meetings. That's we're trying to share the work a little bit. So I don't want to get in the way of that. I want you to fly as committees. And you'll be able to discuss a lot of the topics for those committees in a lot more depth. And then we'll have some great meetings where you report back here. And if you have interest, anybody around the table in joining any of those committees, reach out to Jeff Corliss. Jeff, do we have the list of the committees? Can we put them up on the screen just so that now that I said that people can see what they are?
Yeah, so we have Budget Committee, we have Legislative Committee, we have Public Relations Committee, and we have Membership Growth Committee. So obviously budget is oversight of the budget and recommendations and priorities with regard to that budget. Legislative will be focusing on the legislative strategy and policy reforms that get introduced at the state level and possibly the ordinance discussion. Membership growth is getting other cities and counties and working with the league and CSAC and ACCOC to get other cities participating. And then of course, Public Relations Committee is focused on the ways in which we are communicating with stakeholders, the public, and we have a part of the task force management plan to further amplify the information contained on the website digitally through social media and other targeted campaigns.
Okay, so know that we're looking for that, and you're welcome. We welcome everyone, and I know there's folks online. We are right before the holidays, so we're a little lighter today than we have been. So please, those of you that are around the table, those of you that are online, those of you that are watching this the next time, because it's going to be on the website. Get the word out to your colleagues. All are welcome, and we welcome the mission that we're on, and we are looking forward to some success on this issue finally. I believe that we will make success on it. So thank you all, and I want to wish you all a happy holiday, whatever it is you celebrate. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah. And then, of course, Happy New Year, and looking forward to a good 2024.
We also have a draft schedule that I put up on the
thank you.
screen, which will send that out. It's subject to change.
So so for example, February, we may find the need to meet a little bit earlier to address what we discussed earlier. So these are not set in stone, but these would be, stop listening to me. So anyways, but they're there, and maybe we decide to have a special meeting in January and we keep that February, or maybe we shift it. So just stay in touch with look at the website. I know you get the emails, but just in case you don't, you've got the website that'll keep you up to date. With that, if anybody has questions or wants to talk briefly, please. And then we've got reporting going on. And Kristen.
Just a quick update on the JLAC. The auditor's office did call us this week to say that they have concluded the emergency one that diverted all the services away. They have now started finally this audit, and they gave us the deadline of spring 2024. We agree with you. We probably think that still means summer. And also I did share information with Councilmember Buckman, and I believe also with Jeff, on if there is testimony that you wanted to submit to the auditor's office. They They won't comment, but they will confirm receipt, and I would recommend that.
Good idea.
Councilmember, we are looking to organize groups of residents that we can go out and speak to a bunch of you at one time on camera. We can also capture testimony from people over Zoom. We'll help you with lighting and background and so forth, so that we can make it convenient for those who may not be able to travel or it's hard to get to, so that people can get their testimonies.
We have people in our neighborhood though, they're afraid to talk. These people are not nice that we're dealing with. And there's backlash.
Well, this will only go
They
right
don't even answer the door to us and we're friendly.
Well, this would be the opportunity for them because this is going to the task force.
I mean,
Or
you're dealing
out
with,
the audit.
we're dealing with operators with felonies, so it is hard to speak up
Scary.
publicly, and it is scary when you live literally across the street and they know your name. It does not have to be video.
And you get a cease and desist letter from their attorney.
You have to give a public, when you give a public comment, you don't have to leave your name.
We can also take written testimony as well. That's more comfortable.
People are really nervous.
We'll add in fact, as we're taking video testimony, our intent was to make that available, but we'll have a discussion and make sure that.
Well, and share your thoughts as you're giving that testimony like that, so that that can be considered. And I saw you, Nick, but then we'll go back over here.
Just a quick brief announcement that might be good networking opportunity for the task force. At the end of February, the National Association of Counties is coming to Orange County. And they're planning their meeting. It's not announced yet. And so that might be a good opportunity to, network with counties throughout California and the country. There you have it, and that's all the information yet.
That's great. That's good info. Thank you.
It's 22nd.
Thank you. Okay.
As far as the organizations for the local, I have knocked on doors, and you're right, people are afraid, but it's the approach, how you actually approach them. At first, people were afraid, but once I spent a lot of time and didn't mean to become a subject matter expert in this. But what I've done, I've been able to deliver a message to the public and actually educate them on this. And once you do that, they will come out and they will meet. And I've knocked on doors. I've gotten a petition. I've met with groups and explained to them how to navigate having to live in an environment with these facilities. Those are the things that really help the community to actually embrace being able to deal with the subject matter. And they're afraid, they are afraid, and you have to get past that point. But once you can navigate and allow them, like, come out and speak, put them on camera, they will get on camera because they want to talk. I've interviewed a lot of these people. I've walked my communities.
Introduce yourself.
Oh, my name is Sherman Fowler. I'm from Fan Community. An interesting twist on this, I'm also a licensed broker. So what I've done, I've talked to these people because a lot of people are concerned about the values of properties. They're concerned, and I let them know as an agent, you can't really say anything about it, and it really doesn't impact. But on a larger psychological scale, it does impact them. A lot of homeowners right now are facing this one thing: they want to sell and move to get away from them, but they can't because of the current market. So what they do, they tell me, they say, I feel trapped. I can't escape. So these kind of stories need to be told as well, because this is the other side of this industry. This is a side that's not being told. And today, when I share my story, I want to share this because a lot of people have come to me and as though I'm the go-to to actually ask me, what do I do? So I put together a little format, if you will, to help them navigate this, to deal with it, because it's not an easy thing. And I will share this with you. As far as the public goes, because they're not here, and I'm here basically to rep for that.
Actually, they are. There's several public members here.
Great.
Several public.
Okay. Well, I know the Lord. But anyway, what they don't tell you is this. I've interviewed homeowners that have gone to doctors to get medical prescriptions to deal with anxiety, to deal with stress. Their health has deteriorated. These are the things that aren't being told, that needs to be shared, especially with a committee like this. More and more of these people have these stories. I got tons of them. I walked the neighborhood, I got signatures. I sat down with them. I look in their eyes. I see the anxiety. I see the fear. And the number one fear that they have is not how to navigate, it's the fear of protecting their families.
Absolutely.
That's number one.
Yeah, and we had town halls, and that is exactly what we heard. That you're absolutely right.
If they want, could we just have the private individuals, if they want to introduce themselves?
Yeah, please introduce yourselves and know that you're going to, we want you to give your testimony on camera, however. So please introduce yourselves and what cities.
My name is Sarah Schneider. I'm from San Clemente. I'm new to this, I guess, fight, for lack of a better word. I live on a small loop street by the beach, and there were 3 brand new homes. One house on a big lot got torn down. A builder built 3 brand new state-of-the-art, beautiful homes with rooftop decks, bars inside, you know, all the amenities in the world, all kinds of decks. They're very close together. We're a beach community, so there's not large lots. The homes were sold over the summer to the brand new owners of Be Well Network, which is an operator in San Juan. And when I met with the new owner, they said they intended to operate out of all 3 homes, drug treatment, detox facilities. So just to give you a little background.
Be Well account, isn't
Be Well Orange County is actually a very legitimate and great organization. There's another small little, well, it's private equity.
Okay.
Private equity, Be Well Network, Sheer Recovery. You can look at their websites, all of which, by the way, are fraudulent websites because they're shut down currently in San Juan.
This testimony that you're giving is exactly what we want you to share on screen. I want you to just introduce yourself.
Sorry.
I don't mean to cut you off, but I want to give everybody a chance.
No problem. Anyway, in conclusion, yeah, we're stressed. Our whole I'm a community organizer and I have a group of 250 San Clemente residents who are all very, very stressed.
Okay, well, you're at the right place. Thank you. Thank you for coming. Thank you for your comment. Lori, we know, go ahead.
I'm Lori Durand. I'm with Advocates for Responsible Treatment. We've been working the issue since 2016, 2017. We have a website. We've worked up and down the state with people. We filed. Anyway, you don't want to hear all of that because I don't need to speak about that.
No, but we appreciate your involvement in this, Lori, and the expertise and things you've learned. So thank you.
I'm Lisa Photo, homeowner in Mission Viejo. We have a licensed facility on our street, but it's also networked as an integral facility, which I think there is some problems with what they're doing. It's frustrating, really frustrating. Because they
continuing to come, Lisa.
Anyway, I would like to see too, can there be communication from California to where these people are coming from? Because they're coming from other states where they've been run out and then come here and our neighborhood's ripe.
Right.
They're multiplying. And there's no communication state to state.
Well,
File bankruptcy, same people, new name.
I agree.
My name is Andy. I'm also a resident of Mission Viejo. I have been greatly affected by a drug and detox home right next door for the last 3.5 years, I think. They came in 2020 under the disguise of COVID. Didn't have any oversight with Sacramento when they moved in. It took about 1.5 years for them to finally, have their little investigation. It's been a difficult way to live for these last 3.5 years. Like you said, I know Liz has gone through the same thing. The toxic stress that these people put you through is unbelievable. Yeah, they know that my refrigerator is stocked with alcohol on days where they just, consume your time. No sleep. They dictate your life. They dictate when you could sleep. I have to wait probably 12:30 at night when I think that, the shuffle of the staff come back and forth. Is it safe to go back into my bedroom to sleep? Usually it's not. They'll have business conversations out, the front yard, handling business calls. You'll have midnight therapy sessions after midnight. You can't live this way. They dictate your life. And if you don't like it, there is animosity. there is ways to retaliate. So every time that, we're thinking that we're doing something good, like calling our deputies for disturbances, they'll find a way to get back at us. Usually it's me. And also,
Today, correct?
I guess so. I guess so, but it's the unfairness of being the resident that you've been in a home enjoying a way of life is now just stripped from you daily and nightly. It's 24/7.
It feels like when you play by the rules, you become the bad guy. So it's really, how does a business that makes money take precedent over somebody who's just doing their best to be a regular citizen?
But giving testimony today is gonna be very important. Again, we just want to do introductions. So if you could tell us who you are and where you live.
My name is Laura Curran. I live in Newport Beach next to 2 6 and Unders, which act with the characteristics of integral facility in violation of state law. So I've been working on this issue since 2008. And I also been advocating with Newport to put the audit through since 2000, for about 5 years, since Will O'Neill first brought the idea forward to me. So I'm excited to see it go forward and encourage all of you to have your residents submit evidence through the state auditor's office, and they will take it in because that is an important part of the process.
And I'm Liz Avila. I live in Laguna Niguel, and I live 2 doors down from a detox facility. I've been speaking up for 8 years. We've had sober living facilities and then turned into detox facilities. So I just want to quickly say that I really appreciate all of the work of this community and really tackling different components at the same time. So we are very thankful, and I'm always very thankful to our council members that are very supportive, and our assemblywomen and legislators, Assemblywoman Lori Davies, and specifically, who's been very, very helpful over the years. So just thank you for that, and I'll be staying behind to give my testimony.
Excellent. Okay.
Could I just say one last comment?
Very quickly.
Very quickly.
We only have this room we're over our time.
For the record, we do care.
Yeah.
We do want to treat people. It's got to be by responsible companies at the responsible at the right location.
Yeah.
And that's all I want to say.
Yeah, and that is the motto of this committee.
Yeah,
Absolutely. So we agree. So we feel if we have folks that are taken well care of, then the neighborhoods will be well cared for. So with that said, everybody, please, if you have questions, stay behind. Please do your videos, because that's going to help with the forward. So thanks everybody for coming. Happy New Year.
I'm not against.
Yeah,
but I'm against bad operators.
Right. And it's a difference between what people think of as sober living and what